Joining me is the politician who knows global warming science better than anyone else in Parliament. Craig Kelly, Liberal MP. Craig, great to hear from you or see you again. What was Anthony Albanese up to today?
Well, Andrew, when I first heard the headlines, I thought this might be actually a surrender document and Labor might be prepared to lay down their arms and come and join the coalition. But when you read through the details of what he's actually talking about, he wants to avoid going to the next election saying exactly what he's planning to do. So we have to remember at the last election, Labor went there with a 45% economy-wide emissions reduction target. Remember, economy-wide is agriculture, transport, mining industry. Our electricity sector is only 1/3. And when he was asked how, the Labor leader, Bill Shorten, at the time was asked, how would you achieve it and what cost, he couldn't come up with it. So Anthony Albanese doesn't want to say what Labor's target will be. So what he has very cunningly done has said, we'll agree to some mechanism that the target will be scalable. So that means they don't have to say what they will do before the election. But if, God help us, they were elected and got into office, then they would ratchet up the targets, they would bring in the carbon tax, and they would say, this is all the science tells us what it is.
Craig, you won't get away with it because people will want to know what his target is before the election. We're going to go through that whole farce again. Will you tell us the truth? No, I won't. Dodge, dodge, dodge. Just like what happened to Bill Shorten, it's going to be a disaster. They've got to give up this stupid idea that we can save the world from global warming. Now, Anthony Albanese said, base everything on the science. But then he said this.
The fact is that the cheapest form of new energy in this country is renewables. It's solar and wind.
Craig Kelly, is that true or false? Scientific or unscientific?
Look, it's completely false, Andrew. When you factor in the costs of backing up the renewables, Andrew, or the intermittent, it's not just the fact that it's renewables, it's intermittent electricity. So whatever you have in wind power or solar, no matter how much it costs, you've got to back it up 100% for when the wind's not blowing and when the sun's not shining. And it simply is absolutely false to say that it's cheaper. Otherwise, why would countries like China be building hundreds of coal-fired power stations if the solar panels that they make are a cheaper way of generating electricity? It just shows how out of touch Anthony Albanese is on this subject, and how, if he was ever in charge of policies, how we'd see electricity prices take off yet again.
Look, it's such a complete and total and disastrous fraud. I'm just amazed, that so many journalists, they don't want to know, they don't want to look at it, they just go along with this total hoax. I mean, yes, it's the cheapest form of power if you only want your electricity to run in the daytime when there's wind, and there's no clouds, or as we saw, there's no smoke from fires, because that also cuts the power. Then it's cheaper, provided you're prepared to do that and throw out your food from your freezer every few days or every couple of days. Is global warming, in fact, a bigger threat, as so many politicians on both sides, I might say, your side as well, is it as big a threat as so many politicians say?
Well, Andrew, the reality is, if we look at the evidence around the world, droughts are not getting worse. Cyclone, there's actually less cyclone activity hitting Australia than there was in the past. Anthony Albanese talks about our temperature records being broken. Our hottest day in Australia was back in 1909 in Burke, when it was 125 degrees, which is 52.7 degrees. That was the hottest day in Australia, 1909. That record still hasn't been beaten. Even during the recent heat wave we had last summer, we still didn't beat the record of 50 degrees in Wilcannia from 1939. So, look, you can take averages, Andrew, but the bottom line is, it doesn't matter what we do in Australia. The way China is continuing to industrialise, and also countries like India and Vietnam and many other countries in Southeast Asia, CO2 emissions are going to continue to increase. And the policies that Anthony Albanese wants, where he talks about this renewables-led recovery, will simply lead to an asset transfer to China from Australia. Remember, we spent last year something like $1.7 billion buying solar panels from China. So when Anthony Albanese goes on, we should be investing more in renewables, that simply means we take more money out of Australian workers' pockets and send it off to China for absolutely no result whatsoever on the climate.
Oh, no, you're wrong. It does have a result. Well, it doesn't have a result in the climate, but the result is this. China sells us the technology that gives us unreliable, expensive power.
That's right.
It takes our money and it uses it to build coal-fired power stations. What a joke. It gets stronger, we get weaker. Are we stupid? Answer, yes. Craig Kelly, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.